Alright, so I've still got a little bit to do here, but the first thing I want to address is just filling in the gaps at the back here. Then we can work on this bottom segment, and then we will do the glowing eyes to round everything out. So, what I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm just going to turn off some of these subdivisions, and I'm going to join this back into the faceplate just to cut down on the amount of individual meshes we need to manage. I'm going to leave this because we're going to do some modifications to it. I'll turn that subdivision surface off, and I'll turn that one off as well. So we can just hide that, hide the curve. So the first thing I want to address is actually not related to this part of the model, but I just want this circular piece to sit flush with this front face here. So just with vertex snapping, I'm just going to select these front faces. And I'm just using the normal orientation, so just G, Z. Pull that forward a bit. And that is also going to sort of change the position of this halfway cut that we had on the vent. So I'm just going to bring that forward a bit as well. So that's just the first thing I wanted to address. We also need to fill in the gaps at the back here. So what I'm going to do for that is let's go ahead and make a custom normal direction. Let's get the normal of this, add that in, and then let's go E, G, Z, and change this to edge snapping. And let's snap this back here, just to round that out. I'm just having a look. This edge isn't completely parallel with the one below it, so it's probably not a massive point, but I'm just going to do an extended edge slide. Let's bring that down. Join that face in. And I'm just thinking we can fill in just a big old end-gun at the moment. And then I suppose we can resolve it nicely with a J quad on the inside. Probably don't need to crease those, but I'll crease that. And I just want to make sure that this is a flat face, so I'm just going to go normal, scale Z, 0. Yeah, that's nice, just flatten that out. I might do the same for here, S, Z, 0. And I might just pull that up a tiny bit so we're not getting any Z fighting. Cool. And okay, so this is all a bit wonky at the back here as well. So what I'm thinking, let's put our 3D cursor here. And then let's select all of this. This is kind of an error that we sort of brought upon ourselves all the way back at the start of the tutorial pretty much, but it's not going to be too much of a problem. Let's just go scale Z, 0. And so it sort of changed the shape of this a little bit. I just want to have a look at the subdivision. So it's not too bad. But it definitely pulled this out a little bit. It's going to be very, very minor, but I also just noticed that's an end gun right there. I had not picked up on that for the entire tutorial. That is terrible. I mean, it's not actually a bad end-on position in the grand scheme of things, but I still don't really want it there. I know once we subdivide for the high poly it would resolve into quads anyway, but and I don't want poles on the edges either. That's an easy fix. I'm just going to cut that in, dissolve those, and just cut that to there. And I'll just cut another loop into here, just bring that down to about there, cut this in, and just go merge it last. Okay, merge it last. There we go. And then just dissolve those. And just to make it look nice, we can go ahead and space those out. Cool. Yeah, I don't know how I completely overlooked that earlier, but anyway. No, that needs to be uneven because that's a holding edge. Okay, so we can see that's all come into shape rather nicely. I'm just going to, because this isn't sort of going the full length, I'm just going to slide this back, C, to extend that. Just push it through so it's clipping because we don't want holes in our mesh. I can see that's sort of a side effect of it all not being parallel, I suppose. I'm not too concerned about that because I'm pretty sure that will be mostly obstructed by this circular piece anyway. Not really. You can sort of see the back there. I wonder if there's any value in scaling this up a bit just to try to hide that. Just like that. Yeah, I think that's alright. It's not like we need to integrate it with anything else. And I'm noticing a bit of Z fighting there, so let's just give this a bevel. Sort of makes the shape a little bit more interesting as well, I suppose. Just cuts out any of the Z fighting. Cool, so that sort of just covers that up. Would the better thing be to do just be a more competent modeler? Probably. No, this is fine. It's that's the great thing about 3D. Unless you can see it, it doesn't really matter. I reckon we just pull this back. I don't think we really need to fill in a face. Yeah, that's fine. That's all the way in a crevice. I mean, the ambient occlusion and the dirt maps will sort of sort that out anyway. I just want to see, how's this little resolution going on down here? Because it looks a bit jagged to me, but I think that's just because... Yeah, it's just because it's sort of sloping off at various different angles. You could smooth it out with a triangle, I suppose, but no, I'll just leave it like that. That's fine. I'm not amazingly concerned by it. And so I'm pretty sure, based on the reference, I'm pretty sure this is just like blocked in pretty much, isn't it? Yeah. So we just need to fill in a big old face in here. Let's take the subdiv off the performance. And let's just have this pull back. I'm just going to go vertex snapping again. Let's pull back here. And let's just for the time being fill in a nasty end-on. Because this is going to be a very, very easy part to clean up. I'm just going to do some edge sliding here just to make these sort of sit much nicer, because the way they are at the moment isn't very appealing. And I might even just adjust, just adjust where they sit in relation to the edge they're supposed to be supporting. Actually, that's not going to work very nicely because it's coming off the back of this end-on here. So let's just quad this up. Even though it's pretty unnecessary, but we can just go ahead and make it look nice all the same. And I don't know why that resolves there, but we're not going to dissolve it, otherwise we'll lose the edge. So we'll just cut that in and we'll delete the edge and we'll fill in that face. Cool, and we probably don't need a crease there. It's just unnecessary. And then with this, so I've actually got an end-on there as well. I don't think it's going to be of much concern. It sort of blows the edge out a little bit, I guess. So, I mean, I think... Well, I mean, you just do that, but that doesn't really change the way that's going to resolve. I'm just going to leave it. That's amazingly inconsequential to the grand scheme of things, and I don't think it's really worth all too much concern. I'm just going to drag this edge in just so it supports a little bit nicer. Because, yeah, look, I can see what we could do. We could go through and connect this up and change around all of that topology, but it's really... I don't think it's too important. Like, you can just see the shading artifact that it's sort of creating. It's like just a bit more round as opposed to pointed, but I don't think that's of much concern. This area I would call a little bit more into question though, but I think that's just because it's not creased. I don't think there's anything that we need to really do here, apart from just crease that up. Yeah, and that's a bit rounded, but it's such a minute detail, I'm not too concerned about it. Actually, we might even just be able to take this crease away altogether. Yeah, it's not really doing much. That might be a bit of a problem with the baking, but we'll wait and see. I know that inside part is. Alright, so, oops, no, unhide it, it's not there. And then I think, yeah, so I think I made a mistake earlier when I decided to delete this back face here. I didn't think it was going to be necessary, but apparently it is. And apparently it needs 2 extra loops in it. I'll just approximate where they should be because they're not particularly important. Merge it center, and we'll just crease up the back. There we go, now we've got no holes in the back of the mesh. Cool. Alright, so now is the bigger ticket item, because that just sort of fills in the rest of the gaps that we had. Now it's just understanding how to get this going, and we also need to do a bit of solidifying on the underside of the helmet here as well. So to make this easy, let's work with what we can see. So let's add our 3D cursor over here. Let's bring in a plane, tab into edit mode, and let's merge all the vertices at the center. So that gives us a point there. Now, I think we can integrate this bottom part to be a whole mesh. We'll just wait and see how we go. So let's extrude this back, and our edge is a little bit off from where the reference is, but I'm not too concerned about that. And let's drag this back so it meets that corner, just up a little bit more. And let's just start to drag out to match everything. Bring that forward a bit. These ones are a bit harder to tell where the vertices should sit, especially because I didn't give us a reference for the underside of the helmet because I thought that might just be a bit excessive. But really, it's like if you line these vertices up here and they match there, you've pretty much got the shape. It's not like a perfectly circular sort of shape. It's it comes to more of like a rounded point, if anything. So then this bit's a little bit tricky, right? Because we know that this extends into here, comes up, comes back around, does something or other, right? So yeah, we know this links all the way through here, all the way through here. We don't really have any reference for what goes on behind the faceplate there, which we can kind of use to our advantage, because if we can't see it, then we can just take an educated guess, and if we can't see it, take an educated guess, it's not going to show up in the renders. So if it looks good for all the places that we can see it, then we're all happy. So let's extrude this, and I'm just going to try to line it up with the bottom of the faceplate here. Just drag it to the edge of this curve, and then I'm just going to drag it to meet that edge there. So we know where those points exist, give or take. We've got no idea where it resolves, mind you, so I'm just going to drag this up, take a guess that, you know, maybe somewhere in the middle, go to the side, and, I don't know, maybe pull it back a bit so it's on a bit of an angle. All I'm doing in my head is I'm just trying to picture what this is looking like. So, you know, coming up to a point, and then sort of, you know, curving back down, sort of. That's all I'm trying to do in my head to visualize this, because I don't know where this fits. So it's about as good a guess as any here. And so we can just start to pull these vertices out as well to make this curve. Press that on the front. Pull this down a bit. And you notice I'm not lining it up to the outer edge here because I believe we sort of extrude these out and pull them out a bit, and it's got like a bit of a more bulbous shape to it as well. But once again, that's a guess. I don't really know for certain. That's pretty good. Let's try to build out some of the topology in here. So this definitely isn't going to be just flat, right? It's probably going to have some curve to it, so just try to mentally extrapolate where this curve is going to go. Put this up a bit. So it's sitting a bit more over there. So I'd say we've got a decent bit of topology going on in here now. So I'm just going to space and relax those. So it sort of blends the curve into itself, and I'm just going to do the same here. Space, relax. And so now we've got a nice curve shape going. Yep, I think that looks nice. Oops. So at the back here, let's just extrude this up and along. Keeping it roughly in line there. And then all we want to do is sort of connect the points between. So let's just keep things simple for the time being. We're going to extrude this down to here so we can connect those edges. And I just need to adjust where that one is, so it's actually sitting along the edge. Same with this. Those are now aligned, and then we can just add in some topology here as well. Just going to bevel that, and then we'll be able to fill in these, and I seem to have miscounted the topology, so we just need an extra loop. Oh, sorry, vert. To create an extra loop, space, and I'll just recalculate the outside, because for some reason Blender always guesses incorrectly. I don't know if there's a way to change that. I would love to know if there is, though. Okay, so let's start to try to build this out. Bring that down. Surprisingly, that seems to be in line. Bring that one down. Bring it back a bit. I don't know, it's hard to tell on this section, but I kind of feel like so long as we get a relatively good looking curved shape, it should work. Bring that down a bit more. I'm just going to add an arbitrary cut there. Space these out, relax them. Seems to follow along fine. Then the only other question is, how many loops do we have? Because I kind of feel like it's going to be best if we just fill it up to a triangle, if possible, because I don't want to add more loops through here if we're going to connect it into the back part of the mesh as well. So if that fills to a triangle, then we need to count between points. And so we have 14, but I don't think it's an even split because that's got 9 and this has 5. So let's just go ahead and add in 4 loops here. Sorry, 4 verts there, space. No, not grid fill, relax. Do that, recalculate the outside. Shade smooth. And when we subdivide this, it's not going to look great because of that triangle, but the beauty of it is that it's sort of hidden and tucked away up behind the mouthpiece, so any distortion we're not going to see anyway, so we don't really need to worry about that, which is nice. So let's go ahead, let's just Shift-C to reset our 3D cursor. Let's set the origin to be at the 3D cursor, just so it's in the middle. Oops, don't want to move my reference. Let's add in a mirror modifier, enable clipping, and we can handle this middle section rather easily. So we'll just select down to here because we know that, oh, actually, no, wait. Yeah, we'll just do it down to there because we know beyond that point it needs to be the hole for the head to fit in. So just go down there, bring that until it all clips into the middle. Deselect the top one, let's drag this down so it meets the bottom of the reference image there. And for the most part, that actually fits pretty well. It's just not great at the front, so let's just G, and we can sort of just freehand this because it's not really an important detail, so to speak. Or, actually, instead of doing G for all of it, I reckon, instead, let's just grab this, G, slide that over there, just drag that down a bit to even it out. And then these ones at the front, we can just offset these a little bit from their respective vertices, just like so. And I reckon we can just go ahead and space these out. Oops. No, we can't. Okay. Let's just do like a space between here then, maybe. Yeah, just even it out a bit. It's not too important. Let's chuck a subdiv on as well so we can see our lovely hard surface work. It's a pretty soft edge at the moment, but we can probably crease it up a bit. Drag in a support loop there. Same sort of goes for here. I think we could probably, or is that sort of too soft of an edge? Probably too soft. That's right. Cool, and then we just need to extrude some of the thickness back here. I wonder, does it... Something tells me it sort of like should join into this, but no, I don't want it to. Speaking of joining it together, because we'll have it join in with the back here, I think it makes sense. It's not going to be too difficult to join these meshes together, so I'm just going to do an edge slide, extend it, just so it clips through. Yep. And so for this, I'm just trying to figure out the depth of this and then how it sort of joins up with everything else is the main sort of query here. Okay, let's just give this a shot. So let's just extrude this in, and we probably don't need too amazing a reference here because I kind of feel like my gut feeling is that it should stick around here, and then if we just go GX and snap it sort of to the distance of that, I kind of feel like that should be the right depth. And then we just need to do the same for all this because it sort of creates like a bit of a lip in here, right? So what's going to be the easiest way to accomplish that? I'll say, is there a spacing opportunity there? Can I? Yeah, that looks much nicer. So we need to make a lip. Okay, hang on. I think I see a decent way of doing this. Let's extrude this, snap it to... I'm just snapping it down to this vertex here because I just kind of feel like that makes a bit of sense. I think I moved the whole object by accident. That sort of snaps that into place, and that means if we join these together, and I'm just going to do a bit of an edge slide forward, and cut in 3 verts. Whoa. Okay, that did not at all go where I wanted it to. That's well out of where I needed it to be. Okay. Let's try an edge slide. Edge snapping. Edge, and then GX, snap it there. Yeah, okay, that's better. Snap it there. Snap that there. That one there. It doesn't all align perfectly, and I just kind of feel like it would make more sense if it did. Like, if it just sort of... snap that one down. Oops. I mean, the grand scheme of things, this is such a small little crevice on the helmet. It doesn't matter that much. We're not even going to bother connecting these together because it just seems like such a nightmare, as I've already described. Funnily enough, I don't think it actually continues to follow this edge, because then it sort of juts out more this way. So we probably don't really need a guide or reference to figure out that part. I reckon we can just... let's extrude this back, just so we don't make like a really nasty pole here. I know I said I wasn't worried about the shading on it, but it doesn't mean I want to make an absolute mess of the pole back there. And I might just drag this back, because I don't really like the spacing I'm getting there. And I don't really want to recreate this curvature, so let's instead... let's duplicate this. What's the normal look like? Terrible. Let's just G while we're in top-down view and sort of drag this in a bit. So yeah, that drags it in, and then let's drag it up. By the way, for reference, I'm looking at the rightmost vertice and trying to roughly line it up with this vertice here. I'm not too worried about what's going on there just yet. So let's just fill this face in to see... yeah, so I think this probably needs to be pushed in just a little bit more. Yeah, I think that works better. Cool. And then the only thing we'd need to do from there is... I mean, it doesn't really matter actually, because this is sitting so far back. And even if we did have different detail back here, it's not going to matter. So let's make our lives easier. And just with this duplicated edge that we've got here, let's select these, snap these vertices. Oops, that's still an edge snapping. Vertex, and I just need to make sure I've got the outermost one selected, snap that to there. We can merge by distance, just because there's not a lot of mesh that we're concerned about here. Oh, clipping's turned off, that's why. And then we can just go fill in... oops, how have we managed that? Just add an extra vertice, not a big problem. And let's space that out. And we can go ahead and crease that up. Cool, so for having pretty minimal reference, I think we've done a pretty good job there. And then we just need to get this to join up with everything else. So, because this is kind of like a little bit of a divot inwards, I've just sort of noticed I don't really like where that's sitting in relation to this edge, because it's clipping right through it. So let's push that in a bit, because it's just a bit jarring, and let's just relax that. That will fix the curvature up. Okay, so let's select this, join these together, and let's get rid of the subdivision for a second, just so it's not so laggy to work with. And this isn't going to be too difficult. What we can do is we can just go ahead and we can delete these faces. Actually, let's just delete only faces, and then let's delete that edge. And we can fill in a face there. That's a pretty easy win. And let's go ahead and dissolve that vertice because we don't need it. And then we probably, just thinking, got this underlying edge. Does that exist? Is that? No, because it should realistically just sort of, where'd my reference images go? No, I guess it's sort of, yeah, it's got a bit of a different height difference at the bottom, so we can work with that. It's just a matter of go back into its own view. I'm just trying to mull this over. Okay, I think merge this to last. Create a pretty terrible quad, in all honesty. And then we don't want to fill that face in because that makes a non-manifold face. So let's delete that edge. Got that connected. I mean, technically we could throw a loop in through here, but I don't know if I really see the benefit of doing that, so we can just leave that. And all I'm looking to do here is let's just E to extrude G X vertex snap. That gives us this, and I reckon we just pull this back a bit on the Y, or even no, just pull it back on the Y a bit. Just eyeball it. And that's going to serve the foundation. So we're not going to do it. Oh, we could do it now. It wouldn't be too difficult because this is all. Oh, actually, hang on. No, I think that's stupid because we select this and then we extrude, scale in. Yeah, okay. So this here is going to give us the foundations for creating the bottom loop. We can actually do that right now. I don't see any problem in that. So the way I like to approach this, because we've got a mirror modifier, it's very hard to do any circular assets that resolve in the center of the mesh. So I'm going to duplicate this bottom row of vertices and get out of edit mode. So what we can do now is, because we've got all these selected, right? What we're going to do now, this is kind of bugging me. I'm going to, it probably makes more sense for it to be stepped like this, but it's just kind of irritating me more than anything, so I'm just going to merge this at the last vertex there. Is that connection point really worth it? Let's have a look. I think it's going to just be more problematic than anything, in all honesty. So, look, we tried. I'm going to drag that out, C, and just line it up on the edge there. Give or take, select this edge, delete the edge, and then I'm just going to merge this at last. Oops, and fill that face in, and I don't like this pole because that's quite horrific. Dissolve that, and yeah, I'm going to chuck this loop in, probably highly unnecessary, but yeah, there we go. It's probably not supposed to be like that. It is probably supposed to have that little indent, blah 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 blah, but I'm just going to go with it like this. I don't think it's going to hurt the design all too much. But I am just thinking, because talking about hurting the design, I'm thinking about texturing, and there's no real clear-cut thing that separates the materials. So let me just have one last crack at this thing. Let me just rip these. Grab this face. No, grab not that edge. This edge. Pull that in. Unhide that. Sort of back at square one here again. Let's go edge, snapping, G, Z. Snap it up there. Let's merge this at last. I know that's probably pretty nasty. And we'll merge this at last as well because we ripped all those faces. Fill in that face. So that's a bit jarring, and we've got a big pole there. let's just see how this resolves. I don't have high hopes. It's not too bad. I've made worse topology. I wonder... Actually, you could probably just do away with that loop there altogether. I'm going to say that's fine. Like, well, technically it's not great by any means. You could probably fix it up if you wanted to and do a bit of an edge slide down here and just sort of crush it in a bit more. If you wanted to make it less noticeable. I'm just going to go with that. I'm not too fussed by it. But yeah, so I've only done that. So you could have done the initial solution that I showed you. There's no problem with that. The only reason I've done this is because I was just thinking about the texturing. And it looked really weird if you just have just a seam between two different materials and there's no indication that they are separate. You could probably then make an argument that these should be two separate meshes. So it's really your call. There's no real wrong or right way of doing any of this. But anyway, that was a tangent. I think we deleted those vertices, didn't we? Yeah, we did. Okay, so back to where we were at. Let's select those, duplicate them, separate them. And now what are we looking at? That's the front of the helmet there. Okay. We could probably actually do with a bit more topology at the front. Let's just, hang on, let's go on one more tangent. Let's just add in one more loop. And all I want to do with that is just select those and relax. And that'll be fine. Okay, now we can select the bottom, duplicate, P to remove by selection. Okay, cool. So let's just select all of this. Oh, actually, no, sorry. Apply the mirror and select everything. And let's fill in this face so it's just one big n-gon. Let's flip the normals. Inset. And we can just do it so we have a nice brim. So something like that. This works out pretty horribly, in all honesty. I kind of want that to be cleaned up a bit because I don't want it to be jagged on the inside. So what we'll do, make this a little bit easier to work with. Let's cut this in half again. Faces. We'll bring back our mirror modifier. Cool, and it all looks really wrong at the moment, but we can fix that up. So let's just fill a face in there. So that's just smoothed that out, subdivide it, and we can connect that back in. Okay, it doesn't want to play nice. Could not connect vertices, why? Oh, but yeah, because I didn't cut this in, righto. It's not actually a part of the mesh technically. Okay. There we go. Then we can subdivide that. Now we can cut it in. That makes more sense. Okay. Increase these up. I think those are going to smooth shading. They have. Sorry, flat shading. Let's not space any of that out. Let's do a relax operation on it though. I think that will help make it look nice. And I'd say all in all that's pretty good. Just go ahead and we can delete it, but we still technically need it. So let's just go I, B to do it to the boundary, bring it in a bit more. And then with our normal, we can sort of push this up a bit just to give the indication of depth. And then we could probably, how many verts do we have? Oh, that's 96 in total. So we've got 32 through here. This is only 32. There you go, nice. What's going to be the smartest way to do it? We could do it as a big n-gon. I mean, I don't really see the problem in that. Just insert that again, remove that. And, you know, we could just go scale Z 0 on the normal. Control, actually, sorry, we'll do it for all of this. Scale Z 0 on the normal. Just push that further in so it's got a little bit more depth. So if you do catch a glance of the underside of it, it looks like it's actually got the capacity to have somebody's head in there. Just even that up. So yeah, and even when you subdivide this, it's not too pretty, but I mean, unless for some reason you're trying to focus on this area, then I'd suggest you model an interior, which would just be hell. But for what we're doing, it's going to be good enough. I'm not loving the banding that's occurring on it though. And I do know why it's happening. Alright, let's just do a little bit more work on this. It's going to be pretty simple. Just go ahead, delete this face. Because I'm just thinking, so we've got 32 verts. We could probably... Let's just apply the mirror modifier again. Let's just try grid fill on this thing. You know, that's like a really unnecessary amount of vertices, but let's just scale, whoa, that's global. Normal, scale Z0. You know what, I'm going to go with that as my solution purely because it just doesn't look as screwy on the underside. I know that I've banged on about it not being important, but I just kind of like that a bit more. That's awful. It's like the outer edge. Actually, sorry. Deselect the outer loop of vert, so I'm just going to relax. Maybe I won't, because that's terrible. What about the smooth? What is it? Smooth vertices? That does bugger all. Okay, I'm just going to leave it. I say I'm going to leave it, and then I go and do something else to it. Sure, alright. And can we adjust the... Let's go relax and let's do 25. Yeah, I think that just rounds it out a bit more. I don't want this causing any problems here, which I can full well see it causing problems. So let's just cut this in half again. Stick the mirror modifier back on. Clipping. Let's just drag these down. Drag these down. And then to fix that, let's just select. Oops. Select all that, space, relax. Cool, alright. Put way too much time into that because it's not that important. But let's J to join those back together. Let's select all of these faces because once again I don't want to merge by distance on the whole model just in case it catches something I don't want it to. By distance, just for that selected area. Cool, there we go. Now we got the underside of the helmet all sorted. So now all we need to do is just fill in the little bit at the front of the mouth here, do the eyes, and then I think we've got like some bolts on the side. And yeah, well, once we do the bolt on the side, that's about it. Oh, and so we actually had reference for the underside back here. So mine's gone in too far, so it's supposed to be a bit more shallow, but that's okay. I'm not too concerned about the underside of the helmet, but I will just match this because I can see that this actually sort of goes a bit higher into the back of the helmet. Because yeah, you can actually see from the back here. I completely forgot about that. And I can see something clipping through. What's that? That would be the vent shaft. Nice. Let's just do an edge slide. Pull those back. just so it's not poking through. So let's sort out filling in this little bit here. And I have just noticed, I haven't done a great job of filling this in at the back here. There's just a bit of a big glaring gap that we've left. So all I'm going to do to fix this, I'm just going to grab pretty much all these vertices down here. Once again, this is not a detail that I'm overly precious about in any capacity. I'm just going to drag all these up. Keep bringing it up, up, just until I can see that that gap's closed. And that's fine. Okay, so now onto this. So it's a bit weird, like, you can't really tell what's going on here because it's so heavily occluded by shadow. And it's a bit hard to make it look right in the viewport, kind of like these vents here because they're not being occluded by shadow, right? So it looks a bit weird when we model this out, but I hope it should look okay in the end. I haven't actually done any test renders, so let's hope for the best. Alright, so what I do know though is these back faces, well these like non-manifold faces that we have here, we are going to need to sort of just modify them a bit because we're going to need to build up just a little bit of the interior here just so we can't see anything. We just want to cut all of this off from being able to be seen from, like, you know, the underneath. So let's just go ahead and delete those two faces there. And let's extrude. I'm just going to turn the bevel off. I'm just going to extrude this edge into the middle, and I'm just going to set that as my origin point for my cursor. And with that, I'm going to select all of these vertices on the inside here, set my 3D cursor as the origin point, extrude, and I'm going to scale in. So, one thing. As we scale in, you'll notice this looks like it lines up pretty nicely, right? And yeah, it does. I just personally think this is a little bit too thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it in just a little bit further. So I'm going to well overshoot where it's actually sitting in the reference. But then to account for that, what I'm going to do is I'll scale this up on the Z, and we'll scale so we don't really deform too much of this. And then we'll scale out on the X. And so we can sort of just push that back into where it was. And I think just doing a little bit more thickness on it, it still lines up with the reference. It's just we don't have an idea of the depth, right? We don't know how far back this goes. So I think just adding a little bit more thickness to it like this, I think it just looks just a little bit better, which is nice. Okay, and then it's hard to see. Well, I mean, you can't really see it at all. I just know this because I've had the chance to look at the actual model. But I know this has got like a stepped inner part to it here. So what I mean by that is we sort of have this detail again, but sort of insetted on the inside and then extruded back in, which then helps us close this gap that we have at the front. So let's go ahead, let's just duplicate all of these vertices, scale them out. Just go by like that much. And it's really hard to see. I'm just going to move these forward on the Y. And let's just go ahead, let's just fill these faces. And because this will give us a better indication of whereabouts on the Y-axis we want to put them, so I'm just going to pull them a little bit more forward just so they're a little bit more flat. And I'm pretty sure it's kind of a bit leveraged off from here as well. Not that it's amazingly important. And then with that, let's just do the same thing. So let's grab all these, let's extrude, and let's scale. So bring these in. Scale a little bit more, just a bit more thickness. And we can't actually see this, right? Like this does not appear in the reference images. So let's scale this back on the Z. So I'll just bring it up. We'll almost make it like pretty well flat with the other vertices. And scale out on the X. And so now it's sort of just, you know, tucked away, hidden. And I might just sort of bring all this back a bit more as well. Let's give it a bit more depth. I might even, just thinking about it, might even just bring all of this back a bit more on the Y. A bit more thickness, and then we have less of a gap to close on here as well, which just sort of makes things a bit easier. And I might just scale. What if I do Alt S? No. I'll scale on everything but the Y, maybe. Yeah, let's do that. Just add a little bit more depth to it. I think that looks pretty nice. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to hide the bottom here, just so the workspace is a little bit easier to see. And we can start to build out the bottom here. Actually, I just want to merge this to last, just so we don't have any confusing topology there. And I've just noticed that's not been creased up. Probably have to do a final pass on that, just to make sure that we've got everything creased that needs to be. Actually, speaking of, let's, because these are non-manifold edges, right? It's just to sort of fill in a bit of the gap. I'm just going to go Shift E and 1, just so that we don't get weird normal baking errors on that. Not that it's important, because you can't really see it, but just a bit of forward thinking. It's not too important though. I'm just going to go E to extrude, G, and then Shift Z, so I'm moving on everything but the Z axis. Yeah, everything but the Z axis. And start to build this into the mesh. So let's cut 3 vertices in. Fill all that in. And trying to think how I want to build this out, because we still want like that stepped sort of look into it. Trying to think, how do we get that effect? Because this would, if we extruded it and brought it down to here. Once again, this is very much not important, but let's just go merge vertice at last. Actually, we can just slide all this down, because we can still... Does that work? No, because we do want it offset from where this exists. So we can do that, and then we could extrude this down, G, Z, fill in a face there, so we've got the offset on the inside that nobody's ever going to see. Actually, no, this loop here is useless, isn't it? No, because... what is it I'm trying to go for? I'm trying to go for... Oh, no, hang on. No. I don't want these. No, get rid of that. Sorry. Get rid of those faces. I know what I'm trying to do now. I want to... I just can't think of what it is I'm trying to do. Let's simplify this a bit, because I don't think the way I've got this set up is helping me. GGEF. Let's bring this all back. Bring it back to sit more like there, because then we've got more of like just a brim of where this exists. Delete those edges. This is purely just to straighten that bit out. I'm just thinking it's going to help me understand what's going on, because I know what I want to do, and I'm just struggling to think what that is. G, Shift, Z, Control, snap that in. because then what I want is... Ah, yeah, hang on. So if I extrude this, GZ, snap that, do this, and then I'd need a loop. I'd need this to not terminate down there. I'd need this to loop around. And then we can connect these faces. And then we can just fill that in. I know this is so unimportant because it's not actually visible, but for some reason I've become very fixated on it. So yeah, I want to get that so it's stepped in, and then I can do the same here. So I can bring this back. I'm just going to scale it 0 on the Y. I can bring this back on the Y, snap this to here. And I probably don't actually need it to go back that far, because if I bring in, if I tab back into object mode, bring in the rest of the mesh, it doesn't actually need to go back that far, so I can just do a bit of an edge slide, bring it forward. I can just have this clip in, oops, GG, see, with that clip in a bit there, I'm not too concerned about it. We can have that happen, and then do that. Let's increase these edges up. I keep enabling the bevel and then just sitting there waiting for the for the subdivision to load. In all honesty, I'm not too concerned about this. I'm just going to resolve it to triangles at the back, and we're going to triangulate the model at the end anyway. Yeah, I'm kind of okay with that. It's probably not the best looking resolution, but I'm not too phased because this is not like the highlight of the model by any means. This is just something that we're trying to fill in. And let's actually go ahead. Let's grab the sort of rounded cylindrical part of this. I'm just going to duplicate it. P by selection, and just going to extrude, push it into the middle, and I'm just going to bring this forward a bit. Not too far forward, because otherwise it's going to clip in with everything, but just about there. And then all we'd really then need to do is sort of, well, actually, do we even need that? We could just fill this in. Yeah, let's just do that. Okay, let's. Because this exists back here. So if we could sort of have this fill in down to a face. Yeah, so let's extrude this out. Oh, here we go. I think this is a great solution. Fill that in. Then we don't need to worry about the topology. Just do an inset, B to bounds. And then just to be a little bit, oops, it's not going to like that, is it? Oh wow, that's all over the shot. That's okay, that's an easy fix. Let's just scale that on the normal X. Flatten that out. Ooh, actually, because that's on a mirrored surface, it's not going to turn out very nicely. Let's just P selection, apply the mirror, scale Z 0. Let's do it like that instead. And then we can delete one of the faces, so it's cut in half again. Let's just move it back so it's roughly in line with where things were before. Actually, instead of eyeballing it, let's select that as the active and vertex snap that to here. Just make cleaning it up easier as well. Join that mesh back in together. And let's just dissolve whatever overlapping verts there are. And then for the ones that aren't overlapping, let's just select all of these and then these. We can't do a bridge because that one's selected, so bridge those, and then no, sorry, we'll do an edge slide instead. Oops. Back that way, Control plus by distance. That joins that together, cool. And we can do, actually, instead of doing the inset, let's set the cursor to selected here. Use the 3D cursor, and then let's go extrude, scale on everything but the Z. Just doing this so we don't like merge, get the merge point going down in the corner there so quickly. Like you can see it happening there. We can sort of, like, I guess we could space it out, but just push that back in. Actually, no, hang on. Let's scale again. Do that, push that in. You're never going to see this. Insert. And let's just space between those points. Good enough for me. Increase that up. And nice, that just fills in that gap. So not amazingly important by any means, but it just squares that section away. And I don't love how this looks. It's just a bit too rounded, so I'm just going to add a loop in here and just harden up that edge. Some of the edges just look a bit wonky to me for some reason. I might try this. So it's curved there, so I'm just going to select between these points. And I'm just going to do a G-stretch. And let's just go spread. And I might just push this back on the Y a bit more as well. Just hide those like this. Just so it's not too prominent. I know this should be more shrouded in, cast in shadow I should say, but just going to push it back. Just, yeah, more in the depths of the helmet. And I actually change my thoughts about that since we've fixed up the edges there. And I think that's good. I'm happy with that. I think that looks pretty alright. Now, let's do the eyes. I know the eyes do look good because we've got the back face pointing into them, but we probably need an actual model there. Alright, so shouldn't be too hard. It's kind of like doing a visor in opacity. Ignore these bevels. I was mucking around with something else, and I will show you what I was doing because I think it's of value. But I'm just going to ignore that for the time being. So I think the way I'm going to approach this is I'm going to select all the faces in here, duplicate them, P, selection, and I'm just going to cut into this just so it's sitting on the inside. And let's delete these vertices. That just gives us this. And I'm going to make these 2 individual optics. So let's just get rid of that. And then to try to line this up, I'm going to do roughly the same thing on the inside. So I'm just going to go ahead, select these faces, Shift D, turn the subdivision surface off so it's not so difficult to work with. Isolate these, and then I'm just going to get a loop cut, roughly line it up. I'm just looking at the back one for reference, just roughly line it up with that. And then I can just do an edge slide down here to line these ones up. And I should probably match up where it exists, so just put one there. I can delete those vertices. And do the same here, just slide this back, delete these vertices, and then I can probably just go ahead and space and relax all of these. That creates a pretty good shape for us, so let's just join these together. I'm going to merge that at last. And where are these sitting? I'll merge that at last up there. It's kind of poking out a little bit, which I don't like. So with this one, let's get my bounding box and I'll just slide this back into the helmet a bit more. And I might just do an edge slide down, bring that there. Pull back, push it in a bit more, and then I might just go ahead and, oops. I'll just relax all of these. Well, actually, I might do a space and relax operation on them. And I just realized, sorry, I'll make it a bit easier to see what I'm doing. Just going to hide these, and then I'm just going to select this, space, relax. Just had to hide that, because if we try to do the space and relax with these selected, I think it would mess up their position. Okay, no, it didn't, never mind. Don't know what I'm talking about. And probably doesn't need to be as high poly as I'm about to make it. But what we've got 16 verts there, trying to connect to 5, so that's probably not great. Let's subdivide it. That gives us 9. That should give us 13, and we need 16, so that will give us 17, which is one too many. So let's just dissolve one. Space, relax, and we don't need to be too concerned about these. Fill that in, shade smooth, flip, and there we go. So that is a completed Space Marine helmet. There's just a little bit more that we need to do, mind you, but I mean, look, the shapes there, everything is modelled in. The only thing we're missing are just the bolts on the back here, and they're actually a different design from these ones, so I think they're more like rivets. So I think the easiest way to do this, let's just go ahead and click there. Let's make a cube. I'm going to whack on a subdivision of 3 here. And I'm just going to apply that to go into edit mode, Alt-Shift-S to spherize it, press value of 1. Then let's cut this in half, faces. And let's go face and align rotation. And then let's selection to cursor, scale that down to size. And it's not perfectly round like this, so let's just scale in on the Z to flatten it out. Shade smooth. Cool, and then let's just go Alt-D. That way we duplicate with object instance linking, which is just going to be huge for when we do our UVs. And I'm just going to do Alt-D again, Alt-R to reset the orientation, Shift-C to put our cursor to the center. And I'm just going to call this rivet. Rivet. And I'll move that to my bolts collection. And then, quite simply, what we can do... Whoop, what's going on down here? Ooh, that's very much not good. That's right, we can easily fix that. I'm glad I picked up on that. So let's just do an edge slide, C to extend that slide, push that up, and I can see a bit of a mismatch in the topology there, so let's just pull it up on the Z axis as well. Yeah, just make sure that area is connected. I don't know how I missed that. I was sort of just paranoid I missed something else, but I can't really see any obvious red, so that's good. Apart from like the little speckles that the back face culling causes. Anyway, sorry. What I was trying to do is get a mirror going for these. We'll do it around the helmet, and then actually what I'll do is I'll select these ones that don't have it, Control L, copy modifiers, and we can just leave those with mirror modifiers for the time being, because if we try to apply it, we'll need to relink on the object data, and we can just worry about that later on once they're UV'd and textured. Okay, so just a little editor's note from me. Because I was talking earlier in this episode about, you know, sort of where things line up and talking about, like, materials and how it looks weird if there's no actual, like, clear line of separation. I know we were sort of, you know, discussing whether or not to have this disconnected or, you know, do what we've done here. And I've gone through and I've started adding materials to all of this, and it just doesn't. It looks really stupid because you have... well, you can see it better on the reference image here. You have this go from, like, you know, this nice metallic part back to the painted blue, and when you texture that or just use basic materials, it just looks really stupid. It doesn't look right. So I'm going to change my mind on what we did in the earlier episodes. I'm just going to go ahead and select this. This is a very, very simple thing we're going to do. Just going to go V to rip it. We're going to push it in on the X a bit just to make a bit of a divot there. We're going to resolve it with some pretty terrible topology, in all honesty. So we can just go ahead and we can crease all of this up. So just do that with 0.55. And then, so we're going to have an N-gon in here, but fortunately, from earlier, we've got this. So what I'm going to do is not make a cut like that. Going to hide that, throw this face in, and what we can do is let's just cut like that. I don't think that damages the topology too much. You get a bit of pinching, it's not too bad. And it's on the other side of the helmet, so I'm not amazingly concerned either. I'm just going to do an edge slide, bring this up, and then we can just merge this at last. Oh, actually, probably the other way around, sorry. We should go select that one, merge this at last. Merge at last. And we can just crease up this edge. And this isn't going to look amazing either. It's probably going to be a little bit warped, which it is. So, you know, we can fix that and just sort of drag this in and tighten it up a bit. It's not the best fix in the world, but it works. And once again, not a very pivotal area, but it just makes the texturing component look so much nicer. And in all honesty, I mean, we can probably just bring this one forward just a little bit more. Just there. I think that should just look a little bit nicer. Round that out a bit more. So it looks a bit janky on the model, mind you, but I promise once we sort of get to the model, it looks a lot better. And while I'm just making some quick edits, I just want to address this because I'm not actually as stoked with it as I thought I would be. And I think it might be a little bit of an easier fix than what I was sort of debating earlier. So I'm just going to subdivide these two. Just going to turn the subdiv off. Because we can have a massive N-gon sitting here, right? Because this is just a big flat face. So it doesn't matter how the topology looks, it's going to resolve just fine no matter what. So we'll do that, and then just want to fix this up. I think I might just turn this into a pole, so I might just bring this out, and then let's dissolve that edge, and let's just sort of bring a bit of a support loop into this, I think it's just going to make the topology here look a little bit cleaner. Move that at last. And let's just have a look at that. Yeah, that's much nicer. So yeah, it's still not perfect. We could probably just add a crease onto here. And that will just pull that out a little bit more. But yeah, I think that looks much, much nicer. I don't know if it's perfectly flat in that area either. I know we've already done this once before, but I'm just going to select this area. And it's going to go normal, scale Z 0. And yeah, there we go. That's much nicer. Because I think there was just some fairly noticeable pinching there before. And actually, it doesn't need to be an n-gon. Let's do this instead. Just make the topology look somewhat respectable. There we go. That's much cleaner. So, look, not a big deal. Like, yeah, the topology is not the nicest in that area anymore. You know, a little bit strange on the bottom as well, but I think just for thinking about the overall quality of the model and the grand scheme of it, I think this is just a much better decision to make. And while we're fixing little things as well, I just remembered we never actually creased up this edge here, so at the moment it's way too rounded. So just Shift D 0.55 and we can crease that one up as well. So if we just bring this out to the front as well, just sort of noticed, so the subdiv is making you know, this look really nice and round. Problem is the low poly is not as rounded at the front, so that bake is just going to be horrible when we get around to it. So what we can do is we can just add in a loop to crease it up a bit. Oops, okay, my shift key's not working. And what I'm going to do, because I don't really want to mess around too much with all the loops through here, I'm just going to go ahead and, keyboard being very weird again, I'm just going to hide this edge, and we're just going to have our loop terminate into there. Look at that, GGEF. And I think that should crease it up enough. Or maybe we might need to bring one around as well, but I don't really love the idea of that. What we might be able to do instead... actually no, I'm just thinking the roundness of it for where it's going to sit. I think the profile should be... actually no, it does sort of jut out a fair bit. Okay, so yeah, we will go and add a loop around, but what we'll do is we'll cut this loop in. So because of our nice topology, that will just go all the way up and around, and because of our not so nice topology up there, it'll make a nasty little n-gon. Going to turn the subdiv off. And actually, that can just connect into there. That's nice, cool. And let's just see how that resolves. Yeah, okay, so just on these ones here, just going to do an edge slide and just bring these in just to harden this up a bit. Not too much, just about there. I think that should just make the bake look a little bit nicer. And I might just sort of do this. Might just, actually no, I think, no, I won't do that. I think this should look fine because it might actually help sort of taper this in a bit as well. Yeah, there we go. So that's a bit of a harder edge, but I think it's okay. Oh, yeah, and we can just go ahead and unhide that edge in edit mode. There we go. But yes, this looks fantastic. You should be very proud about this. Let's just get a little bit of lighting in here very quickly to just have a look at it. Let's just go and get an HDRI. I like this one here. I think it looks pretty good for just very neutral lighting. Put transparent on. Oops. Because I want to select the reference images. But yeah, there we go. Look at that. Doesn't that look nice? Very, very clean looking model. So yeah, there you are, guys. That's how we make a Space Marine helmet in Blender. I will do another separate tutorial for the skull. I've actually just got to figure that out myself. I haven't brushed myself up on that yet. But yeah, I'll get around to that at some stage. And baking textures and texturing this is also in my pipeline. I just really need to see what the level of interest in this tutorial is first. See how it performs, see what the engagement is with everybody, and then it'll sort of dictate how much further I take it with the rest of the content, such as, you know, as I said, baking, texturing, and also if the interest is there, I can go and delve into how you would model in the divots that appear on the helmet, so the sculpting for that, and then modifying the low poly to bake those details into the mesh and have actual mesh displacement as well. So, but we'll just wait and see what people think of this, whether they enjoy this format, whether you enjoy the new way that I'm trying to teach modeling. Hopefully it's a little bit more easy to understand compared to the Mark 6 Gen 3 series. And yeah, anyway, guys, I really hope you're happy with the model that you've managed to make, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you in the next tutorial.